Hello, and welcome to the Suicide Prevention Lady podcast. I am your host, the Suicide Prevention Lady, also known as Dr. Rikki Turner. I am, for those who do not know me, I am the thinky speaky doctor. I am not the medical doctor. So keep that in mind. Today, I am launching my podcast on my 40th birthday. Happy birthday to me. I am proof that it is never too late to start new scary things. So, thank you so much for being here. Today, I want to talk about my origin story. How did Still You Rise, the company that I founded um, for suicide prevention efforts, how did I get started? And um, it's a story where the universe basically told me I had to. It started when I was basically in high school, and then went all the way up until now. And it's just a funny story of how the girl who has never once in her life considered or attempted suicide became a suicide intervention expert, and I have dedicated my life to I really want to change the world. I want to change the world and how we interact with suicide, how we think about it, how we talk about it, and everything. So, first, let's start at the beginning. I did not grow up in a family that went to college. I was the first person that went to college in my family, and so growing up, I didn't have super high ambitions as far as like career and achievement was concerned. And I'm not talking anything that I say about these other professions. I am not saying I'm not speaking less than of them in any way. But when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a clerk or a cashier. I really enjoyed the buttons on the cash registers. I Everything about it. And as to this day, it's still extremely satisfying for me. And I really enjoy it, and sometimes I even think, when my son moves out, maybe I'll just get a little side gig because I really enjoyed it. So I that was really all that I had ever thought about. Now, I didn't think I couldn't go to college, and I don't know how to really give how I feel about this or what my experience was, but I didn't know about college. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know any of the words that people said about college. It just did not compute me being in that realm because it didn't make any sense to me. It would be like someone talking about me like I could go into astrophysics. No, no, I could not. I assure you I couldn't. Physical science made my whole eyes close. So I could not see myself there. Not because I didn't think I was worthy or anything like that, but we were poor. No, I didn't know anybody who had any experience with it. So in high school, I remember sitting in a assembly that we had, and my thought, I don't know, it was weird. I was just watching the person who, by the way, I have no idea what they were talking about. I don't know who it was. I have no idea. I just remember looking at them going, I'm going to do that one day. And then I remember thinking, what are you talking about? That is such a weird thought to have. I had no interest in speaking in front of people. I had no interest in that lifestyle at all. Didn't know what a keynote speaker was, honest to God. But I just remember sitting there going, you're going to do that one day. And it was just like I knew my name. I didn't really give it much thought because it was kind of crazy. And I went on about my life. I went to college and I went in as a speech pathology major. Why was I a speech pathology major? Have I ever gone to speech pathology? No. Did I really know what it was? I knew it made people speak good. That's what I knew. I didn't know much about it at all. Just heard it makes a pretty decent living. And I was like, I'll be a speech pathologist then. Bet. And honestly, I probably would have made a good speech pathologist. I, I could have been a nurse. I could have done a lot of different things. But I went in thinking I was going to be a speech pathology major. Now, when you go to college, you have prerequisites that you have to meet, the general education requirements. One of those is speech communication. So I had to take a speech class. In my speech class, we got assigned to interview somebody in our the field we wanted to go into and a career we wanted to go into. And so at the end of class, I was going to look up different people in the speech pathology department, but my professor kept me back and she said, um, I want you to interview Dr. Amy Hawkins in the um, public relations speech communication department. And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be a speech pathologist, not a speech communicator." And she was like, "I know. I still want you to do it. I think you'd be really good at it, so I just want you to explore that." And I was not one to say no. I was very much a people pleaser. And so I was like, okay. The assignment is the assignment, whatever. So I went and I interviewed Dr. Amy Hawkins, and I was fascinated. I loved everything she talked about public relations, she talked about speech communication, what careers might look like in that, and I was like, "Love it. Sign me up. Great." And I changed my major based on that conversation. Um, a little impulsive, perhaps. I never changed my major after that. I just continued going on with it. I loved it. I loved all my classes in communication, especially. So, another kind of weird moment in my life was I remember coming in as a freshman. We had the first night we had an all hall meeting, and everybody from in the whole building came together in the lobby, and we were introduced to different staff members and people and whatnot. And I remember when the residence coordinator, who was like the hall director, she spoke. I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know her title. I didn't I didn't know what she did. I didn't know what qualifications she had to get there. I had no idea. It was very much like when I was in high school, and I looked at her and I was like, "I'm gonna do that one day." And it and I did the same thing I did in high school. I kind of stopped myself and be like, "Where? Where does this come from? You're not gonna do that. You're gonna be a speech pathologist, obviously." So, anyway, and just another one of those moments. Well, I continued on and ended up becoming a resident assistant, which is right under a hall director as an undergrad. And I loved that work too. I loved what I was doing in class, and I loved my job as a resident assistant. And I quickly figured out that you could get a master's degree in basically being an RA. Like that's how I felt about it at the time. It's in college student affairs, and there's a whole science behind how we support students when they're in college and help them be successful. And so I I was like, wow, I get to be the hall director, and that was the graduate assistantship that paid for me getting a master's degree. Yes, please. Love free degrees. So, I kind of just was like, yep, that's what I'm going to do now. So I never wavered on my speech communication or if I should do something different. It fell right into place. I really enjoyed it. And I still had this like nagging thing in the back of my head of like, you're probably going to end up speaking one day. Fast forward to I think it was my junior year, and someone approached me and said, "Hey, I think you'd be good to be a part of this organization that goes into college or not colleges. They go into middle schools and junior highs in the area in Central Arkansas, and they speak to students about different things. You know, some are about money, some are about serious things, bullying, suicide, sexual assault, whatever, different things. And it was like little mini motivational speeches that we give. And so they were like, I think you'd be good at it. I'd like to get you connected with the CEO. And I was like, sure, sounds great. Now pause in the story here. I was afraid that they were going to want me to talk about sexual assault because um, while I have so many fond memories of my childhood, I also have some very dark memories from my childhood. And there was about a 4-year period in my early adolescence, um, anyway, when I was a kid, that I experienced every form of abuse that is available. And it wasn't by just one person. It was multiple people over multiple different years. Some were related to each other, some were not. And it was a very hard time, and that has had an impact on who I am as a person and how I deal with things. Um, I have PTSD and different things. The whole body keeps the score, living it. I totally understand. It affects me on a near daily basis at this point. At that point in my life, though, I had not gone through all of the healing that I needed to do, and it was really hard for me to talk about it. I would talk about it if I needed to, and if that's where they needed me, I was probably going to figure out a way to do it. But I knew at that point, if I was to talk about sexual assault on a daily or like for a day in a classroom or whatever, I knew the impact on that would be I would come home and I would not be able to really speak to anybody. I would be just so drained of energy. I would have nightmares for days. I wasn't really interested in that. So I didn't know how the conversation was going to go with this woman. So we go and we talk, and it was a Christian-led organization. It had like a Christian mission, but it wasn't like when we went out and talked, it wasn't religious at all. It was secular. So the woman, she asked me, she was like, "Just tell me your testimony. What is your story?" And I was like, "Okay, we're gonna go there, new person." But so I went ahead and I told her everything that happened. You know, everything that happened from childhood to first abuse to parents getting divorced to second abuse to abusive stepfather to like the whole gamut. And I got to the end and I was like, and now I'm in college and my college is paid for and I'm going to get a master's degree that is paid for. And no one has in my family has been able to do this. So I feel like I'm changing the trajectory of my family. And she was like, "Wow, it's a really powerful story. I want you to talk about suicide. I'd like to offer you a position to talk about suicide." And I was like, "Did I say it wrong? Did I did I I'm not sure you heard what I said." Now I didn't say any of that. I was just like, well, I don't have any experience with suicide. I don't know anybody who's ever died by suicide. I have never thought about it myself. I've never attempted myself, so I'm not really sure what value I could add here." And she was like, "I want you to think back on what you just told me. Don't you think it's remarkable that you didn't?" And I was like, "Hmm, I had never thought about it that way before." And she was like, "Don't you think these kids who are going through similar things or worse um, could hear the resilience and perseverance that you had and take some lessons from that?" And I was like, "Okay, okay, I have a lot to think about." And I thought about it and I was like, "You know what? You want to be a motivational speaker? Here's your chance. Get to work." And so I accepted the position and I put stuff together and I went out and I spoke and I really enjoyed it. It was not a high paying job. It was almost volunteer. There was no real cash flow with it, but it was experience that I needed. And it was another instance of the universe being like, skirt, no, you're not going to do what you think you're going to do. You're going to do this instead. And so that's kind of how I fell into that. Now, while working as a resident assistant and then also as a hall director, um, when you work with students who live on campus, you're working with a bunch of students in their home. And so we get lots of student emergencies. A lot of those have are people who are considering ending their lives. And so or attempting to, whichever. And so I got called a lot for these type of things. Most people did not even know I was a speaker on suicide. They did not know that. I didn't advertise that. But something about me, something about my presence made people feel like they could handle it better if I was there, or I would come in and just kind of take over and handle the situation. So I kind of became known as the suicide lady, which I tell the story about that, but I've obviously renamed it to the suicide prevention lady. The other one sounds a little grim reapery, but it wasn't like that was a nickname or anything. It was just, I just kind of became known as who you call when this happens. I became a hall director a semester early as an undergrad instead of as a grad student. Um, an opening came up, and I was trusted enough to be offered that position, and I took it. Um, and I continued to go on even when I got my first postgraduate job as a hall director, full-time hall director. Same thing. People would find themselves in my office. Like they're like, they would come into my office and be like, I don't even know why I'm here. And I'm like, okay, sit down, let's talk. And then a little bit later we would be talking, like they're crying and telling me how they don't want to live anymore and stuff like that. Like it's just something that's happened. I can't really explain it. So that moniker, I guess, kind of that theme kind of followed me, and I continued to be the person that people wanted to have around when dealing with these type of situations. Now, I also took this opportunity to learn as much as I possibly could because I had never experienced suicide before, so I could only make sense of it in the best way I knew how. And I found a lot of different things that I thought would be helpful to somebody who was going through it because it made a lot of sense to me, but in hindsight was not as helpful. And we'll cover those on some future episodes. But I um, took that, and as I continued to grow through the ranks at the university, I became a part of the behavior intervention team. And now most college campuses have something like this. It might not be the behavior intervention team. That name is kind of gone out, but it's might be a care team or students of concern or anyway, what it is a committee of professionals on every college campus. It consists of typically, and this can vary, but typically it is somebody from Housing and Residence Life, somebody from the Dean of Students office, conduct office, something like that. Somebody from the counseling department, somebody from health services. It's just people that can help provide wraparound services and think about students of concern. Now, students of concern can be anything. Doesn't have to be just suicide. It can be sexual assault happened on campus and we need to figure out what to do with to support students. It could be suicidal students. It could be students who are having behavioral issues, chronic behavioral issues, disruptive issues, whatever it is. If a committee could get around and figure out how to help a student either keep themselves safe and succeed, or to help keep others safe on campus if there's some sort of threats or something going on, then that's where we talked about that and put together plans to help students stay in college or find areas that they can be more successful in. And this team, in any given year, and I'm estimating here, but we could expect one to, at an absolute maximum, 5 serious suicide attempts or death by suicide a year in an academic year. What I mean by that, I don't mean to minimize any suicide attempt at all, but what I'm saying with the serious suicide attempt is ones that the student ended up in the hospital, not because that was how we kept them safe, but because they had harmed themselves in such a way that we weren't sure they were going to make it. Like they needed medical attention because of an attempt that they had made. And if we would have gotten to 5, I mean, we would be very concerned at that point. Not that we didn't have lots of different ideations or other types of attempts, um, but these are the ones that it was like, oh my God, we almost lost them, or we did, in fact, lose them. So we had one semester where we had 16, well more than 3 times as high as a normal year. So, you could make the argument it was more like 6 times, if the trend continued into the spring semester. It was a easily the hardest time I've had as a professional, um, because students were getting hurt. and we could not figure out why. There's such thing as contagion or cluster suicides and stuff like that. We couldn't even tie it to that. It was seemingly random. And I mean, I just remember feeling so helpless and not knowing what on earth is going on. And we investigated. I mean, we tried so hard to figure out what was going on. I'm not sure we ever put a pin on it. But one thing that we did was we took those 16 students. Part of the process is to talk to their faculty, right? Talking to the faculty of those students, which, there was more than 16 faculty that were spoken to, but of the number, I don't remember how many people we spoke to. But when we talked to those faculty members, they rattled off warning sign after warning sign after warning sign. It might be one, it might be three, whatever per student, but all of them rattled off some sort of warning sign for that student was struggling. Now, did they know they were rattling off a suicide, a warning sign? No, probably not. But they were giving us things such that, oh, they haven't been to class in a while, they've fallen off, their work isn't as good as it was, their attitude has changed, their dress has changed, their whatever. They've noticed something about the student that was alarming to them in some way. But when we asked them, okay, and what did you do anything? Did you talk to the student? Did you refer them to counseling? Did you fill out a student of concern form? Anything? Gave a whole list of different things that they could have done. And none of them did anything. Zero. Now, if you're getting angry hearing that, welcome to the club. I was also quite enraged by this because I live it. I know instinctively what to do because I did it on a daily basis, and I could not fathom ever hearing that there was a student I was concerned about and not checking in on them or not sending somebody in or not letting them know I care about them or so many different things that we could do. I couldn't imagine not doing any of them. So I mean, I like to call it indignant with rage. I was very judgmental about it and not happy. Um, so as time went on, my heart did soften to it a little bit, and I started to kind of see, okay, I know these faculty members. I didn't know all of them, but in general, I know faculty members, and it's a not high paying job and it's a giving teaching profession. These people aren't doing it for ulterior motives. We didn't happen to find all of the just really crappy people at the university, and that's what happened. What we found was they had very real beliefs that kept them from intervening, kept them from doing anything. And I wanted to know what they were. I wanted to know, okay, so we can keep this from happening in the future, because I couldn't help but think, how many of those students could we have saved? How many of those students didn't have to get down that road? Because, I mean, I would like to think that somebody could have gotten to them, but there's so many kids on college campuses who only see faculty members. They see faculty members and they see their advisor once a year. Um, so it just bothered me that there's people out there not being reached because this group of professionals don't know what to do. And so I had started taking courses for getting my doctorate in higher education. And I was in my last class, it was legal studies, and we needed to write a paper about a topic of our choosing, but the had to do with legality in higher education. And a 50-page paper sounded awful, right? No one's like, yes, sign me up for a 50-page paper. That sounds like a great time. And I was certainly in that bank, but I wanted to see, could I write this about suicide, the litigation around suicide liability with suicides on campus, because so many campuses continue to believe that they have immunity and cannot be sued for this. Spoiler alert, that is not true. That is not true. The courts have overwhelmingly decided that you can, in fact, be liable for not intervening when someone is suicidal or when you're worried about somebody. So, um, I use that as an opportunity to write about it, and I've never written a paper so fast in my life. I do not enjoy writing papers. I am a researcher. I understand that I have to get over that, but I don't love it. Um, but it was so interesting to me, and it was just like, "Oh, this is good information. This is stuff I can use. I love this." And so I took that and was like, "I need to make this into my dissertation topic." I had 2 previous topics, and I don't know if you've ever written a dissertation. It is like writing a book. Not like, it's writing a book. You write a book. It's a research book, but it's a book. And, it's hard. It's extremely hard. There's a reason why a lot of people don't finish. It's very, very hard. And you have to be more stubborn than smart to be able to do it. Anyway, so I found a way to make that my dissertation topic, and I started looking into different studies, and I found a study by Dr. Rosalie Aldrich, and she had developed a model of, it was assessing college students' willingness to intervene with other college students with suicide. So it was a whole model, and I took that and I adapted it and applied it to faculty, and I studied the faculty. And I I defended my dissertation in September of 2020, and I knew I couldn't leave it. I couldn't leave it at that because the findings were so profound. I was like, I can't stop here. I have to teach the teachers. I have to help the helpers. This is my role. Um, people wonder, like, so do you just like get calls and you respond to suicides? Absolutely not. That's not what I do anymore. That time in my life has passed. Do I still do it? Actually, yes. For people that I know, they will call me. If I don't get a call once a month, with people having questions of how to deal with something, of course that happens. But what I focus on now is educating the masses, and I feel it in my soul. I feel it in my being. I am meant to be on this earth to change the culture around this because I think the world is better with you in it. And there are so many different types of pain and circumstances and illnesses and all the different things that can go wrong in the world. Yet this is mental illnesses are the only thing wrong with our bodies that we're like, that is your responsibility and you need to figure that out for yourself. Um, it's still taboo. It's not okay to take a mental health day for some reason. It's not okay. It's health is health. If you had somebody, if you're at the beach and you see someone drowning, do you yell instructions for them on how to swim? Or do you get out there and save them? Or do you get them a lifeguard and get the lifeguard out there to save them? This is what we need to be doing with mental illness. If I pass out from a diabetic coma, you're not going to come and stand over me and yell at me, "You should really eat some sugar." You're not going to lecture me on my food preferences at the time. You're going to get something in my system and get me medical attention. I do not believe in my soul, I do not believe that the answer to the suicide epidemic in this country is help seeking behaviors and people doing their own self-help. I can't make my kidney better if I have kidney disease, and I can't make my brain brainy better because I have some sort of mental illness. So I want to change the conversation. I want to change the way we talk about it. Let's destigmatize this. Let's say suicide. Let's be open about it and let's help each other out because I talk to so many people. I interact with so many people when I do speeches, when I do trainings, when I get in there and talk with people. This is what I'm hearing. And it's loads and loads of stuff that make it worse, that really do like make them feel alienated or like it's their fault or shame. But then I also hear about the things that just work and make people feel loved and make people feel seen. And I'm on a mission to illuminate all of those. So if you have made it this far, congratulations. This is my soapbox. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to take this journey with you. I expect to drop episodes once a week. There may be some where some weeks I can't do that, but I hope that you find this beneficial and helpful. If I can be of service to you, please reach out. Please visit my website, stillyourise.com. If you need a trainer, if you need a speaker, I do motivational speaking, I do mental health speaking, lots of stuff about, kindness is leadership and how to improve the mental health of your workplace. All of these different things, please reach out and let me know. Please share and subscribe. That would help me immensely. And I will see you guys next week.